Drawing arms and legs can be tricky. Maybe you struggled with getting the proportions right or making them feel natural in different poses. I know I have. And recently, I spent a week doing a focused limb drawing sprint to figure out what actually helps. What I learned is that you don't need to dive into every muscle or memorize every bone to make your limb drawing look convincing. Instead, just focusing on basic shapes, silhouettes, and key landmarks can make a huge difference. And it's much faster. In this video, I'm going to share the small and practical tips I picked up over the years and from that sprint. These are things you can apply immediately to your sketches and make your arm and leg drawings look more natural without overcomplicating things. Let's dive in and get right into basic proportions. I use the torso here as main reference for correct proportions. Starting at the shoulders, the arms go down until the wrist lines up with the crotch. Here, the arm is slightly raised to the side, so the wrist is a little bit higher. From that length, just past the midpoint, is the elbow, which aligns with the end of the ribcage. For the lower body, the legs take up half of the body height. And right at the midpoint sits the knees. Let's create the first sketch with a small detour to gesture to give the limbs more direction. First, I sketch out the general placement and direction using just dots and lines. For the general shape of the arms, I use slightly bent lines that taper down. At the top, I use a smaller but prominent curve here to indicate the shoulder shape, which plays a really big role for the arm silhouette. For the legs, I often use a curved line on one side and a straighter one for the other, and I keep the same dynamic but flip it for the lower leg. I bend the line for the upper leg at the end here to indicate the knee. And if you look at the leg from the side, you'll notice that the leg is slightly curved backward. Okay, moving on to construction to turn the sketch into simple volumes. I use cylinders for the main limb parts and circles for the joints. For the arms, the circles represent the shoulders and the elbow, while the cylinders define the upper arm and the forearm. The forearm is a little bit tricky because it tapers heavily towards the wrist. So near the wrist, I use a flatter, more boxy shape. This boxy shape also helps to indicate the wrist direction. And this makes it way easier to correctly construct the forearm with the hand's position in mind. Combining the cylinder with the boxy end gives it a shape more like a chicken drumstick. Continuing with the legs, the circles and cylinders take on the same roles as they do in the arms. Keeping one side of the cylinder straight, while the other curves, gives the construction a more gestural feel. I always taper all the cylinders to give them a more natural look, even though I'm still just working with geometrical volumes. The lower leg cylinder is also slightly shifted back to give it the curve we see when looking at it from the side. Adding muscles and surface details is the biggest step here, but I try to keep it light and focus mainly on shape changes. Based on the pose and how muscular the arm is, I let the upper arm shapes flare out from the shoulder here. The forearm is again rather tricky, because the hand can rotate. This rotation changes the silhouette as the muscles wrap around the forearm. One thing that makes it easier for me is knowing that one of the forearm bones goes from the elbow all the way to the pinky side of the hand. It is not covered by any muscle, so that side of the forearm is always flatter than the other. Also, this bone often creates a ridge there. So when elbow and pinky are visible, I always indicate it. And because of that, it's always important to consider the hand rotation at least a little bit when drawing the forearm. When the arm is bent in a pulling movement, the bent side bulges while the other side stretches. And when the arm is stretched, this relationship flips. Now for the legs. The upper leg is usually more curved on the outside than on the inside, while the knee bumps out on the inside and dips on the outside. Just above the knee, on the inside, there's often a very slight change of line direction. This is because a muscle wraps around the side of the knee and creating a slight dent. This small dent alone makes the leg feel so much more natural. The lower leg has a bigger curve here on the inside than on the outside, and the inner curve sits a little bit lower as well. There are also some silhouette differences in female and male legs. Female legs tend to be curvier and rounder in general. For the lower legs, they are much smoother, while the male calves are bulging out more heavily. This creates a stronger contrast between the calf and the ankle. Also, the kneecap has a more rectangular shape, and a few small marks like these are usually sufficient to indicate it. For the ankles at the bottom, alignment is important. The inner ankle bone sits higher than the outer one, which creates this diagonal rhythm that runs through the whole leg. Just like with the arms, when the leg bends, one side bulges while the other straightens. And when it's heavily bent, a lot of definition gets lost and overlaps. And that's it for my quick tips on drawing arms and legs using simple shapes. I hope these small tricks will help you simplify your limbs and make them feel more natural. Now I want to hear from you. What's one small tip that actually changed your limb drawings? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to see your insight and what actually worked out for you in your practice. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I see you in the next one.